Hi guys, welcome back to the Rad Hyrox podcast. We're here today with Kat Biddle. We met Kat in Hyrox Melbourne actually when we were over in Australia. We got chatting in the start tunnel of the women's pro doubles race, which she was completing with her friend. And well, she's got a myriad of Hyrox races behind her. She's done 10 races, both solo and doubles. She's got 10 age group podiums and a ninth place at Worlds. And she's also already qualified for Chicago Worlds in both doubles and singles. And she's hoping to encourage more everyday and older athletes to give Hyrox a go. So I think she's definitely the best person to speak to about Hyrox, about qualifying for Worlds, and about giving every single Hyrox category a go. So thanks for joining us today, Kat.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh,
I hope you guys have enjoyed your time in Australia today.
Yes, it's been really good so far, and we enjoyed Hyrox Melbourne, which is maybe where we should start because that's where we met you in the start tunnel. You had a few Hyroxes under your belt by then, but how did you find that race after going into it like an experienced Hyroxer?
Well, I would have to say I was probably a bit underprepared because I think I'd done 8 solo and 1 doubles at that point. So I was like, oh, it's only a doubles. But at the same time, I think I chatted to so many people in the start tunnel that I don't think I really warmed up. So in the first lap or two, I was just like, oh my God. And even my partner after the race, she's like, I think you went too hard in the ski. And I was like, I think I probably should have stopped talking in the and because I mean, you guys would know it's all about community. And there were so many girls, like I heard your accents and I was like, oh my God, they're the rad chicks. I have to go and say hello. And you're
Yeah,
in your
so
bright
nice.
LSKD outfits that you've obviously just been kitted out in. And yeah, it was just, I think I was just a bit excited to have so many friends racing that, yeah, I've actually, I don't think I really came good until about halfway. I was dying the whole, the start of the race. So, yeah.
It was a great atmosphere though, and I think like you've already touched on it, the community is so important and so good in Hyrox, and everyone is chatting and takes away that nervous bit at the start. So how about when you first heard about Hyrox? What kind of fitness level were you at before you started competing? Were you like a gym goer, runner, a
So
total novice?
I've always kind of kept myself fit, but I had actually been seeing a guy that was living sort of 2 hours outside of Melbourne. So I quit my gym membership. I'd put on 6 kilos. I was eating too much cheese, too much wine, and I just needed something kind of to focus on. And then BFT brought Hyrox out to Australia, and I was like, oh my God, this is something I could probably do. I quite often train solo. I've always I just don't have any kids, so just getting out and running. I was like, right, I'll just do open, like go straight in. As only open though, not pro. And BFT had like a 10-week training block to prep for it. But in saying that, it was literally just a weekend sort of Hyrox class. So I kind of went and did a bit more running in the background and that sort of thing. But I came off quite a low base because I hadn't run for probably a year. I had a bit of a hip injury. It was a bit heavier than carrying a few extra kilos. So it was something really, good to aim for. I've run a few marathons. No, I haven't done 106 in 106 days, but I've done a couple in the past. And I was like, oh, a marathon's quite tired, like boring sort of to train for on your own. And like I was at the time, I think I was 47. I was just like, oh, it's a bit harder on your joints. This is a lot sort of easier. And as it turned out, it was a lot more sociable. And yeah, and I think we didn't know anything about Hyrox in Australia. So I just sort of started looking it up, watching a few YouTube videos. And then I think I won my age group. And then I actually went home because I wasn't that far from the venue, had a shower. I had some friends with me. We had like a glass of champagne or something. And then my friend's like, oh my God, you won. And so I was like, oh, really? And they're like, oh, the award ceremony's at this time. So I went back and I actually got up on stage in like a leather jacket, it's a pair of jeans and boots, like, because we were ready to kind of go out to kind of, celebrate this achievement. So, yeah, so like when I say I'm an everyday athlete, I really am, because it kind of came as a surprise, and they were like, "Oh, you congratulations, you've all kind of qualified for Worlds," and we're like, "What's Worlds?" So, and then I think because we were one of the first couple of races in that whole Hyrox season, they announced Nice at the start of September, so we were at the end of August, and literally like a week later. And because of the time difference, we woke up to the news that the World Champs was going to be in Nice, and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, so that kind of just started the journey, and then from there I was like, right, I need to do another race. So I went to Singapore, and then it kind of just went from there.
Well, that's so cool. You must have been the best dressed person that's had a podium picture.
Well, the guy, I actually think I've got a video of the guy's like, "Oh, you look ready to go out," and I was like, "Yeah, I've just had a vodka." So
everybody else having their protein shake.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, we went out only for a couple of hours, and after that, I was like, "Yeah, I'm a bit sold. Let's go home." So yeah, but
that's so cool. And how did you find your first race? Because you obviously said, like, I get what you mean about a marathon. Training for a marathon is like long, like the duration, and on your own it's quite a lot of commitment, a long time, like just getting the miles in. Obviously the training must have been more enjoyable, but how did you find the race? Was it what you thought it was going to be? Like your first experience in your first race, was it?
it was probably harder than what I thought it'd be. I had done a full sim at BFT, and just kind of kept moving through the stations. You were kind of meant to stop every 5 minutes, but I was just like, no, I'll keep going. But you didn't have the rock zone, like a bigger rock zone, and the intensity was a lot like higher in the race. But I don't know. I think you kind of go peaks and troughs. I actually hate the burpees, and I still do. But it's the best, like the biggest saving grace is it signifies halfway. So it's almost like once you've done it, you're like, oh my God, it's like downhill from here. So the first race, and actually the first race was held at a different venue last year in Melbourne, into 2023 in Melbourne, and we actually it was at a showgrounds, and the wall balls was actually in a different like pavilion. So you had 7 of the exercise in one, and then you actually physically went outside, left the pavilion, and then you went into another. So it was kind of quite an exciting race. But again, none of us knew what we were doing. Like,
just we're in it for see what it's all about.
And then at work on the Monday, because I kind of told people I was doing this race. I had no idea. And they're like, "Oh, how'd you go, Kat?" I was like, "Oh, well, I won, and I'm going to the World Champs." And they're like, "What?" So yeah, so it's all kind of just sort of trajectory. Like it's been great sort of like last 18 months, and the people that we've met along the way has been amazing.
And then what about like for going forward? You kind of have gone into this Hyrox world. You've now done quite a few races. Do you think this like past season were you more focused on like goals or improving certain aspects and trying to get the World Champs qualifier for Chicago this time round, or were you still just kind of in it to have fun and keep fit?
No, I think because like we kind of knew a few of the other girls' names and sort of things. So there was 3 of us that represented Australia in that age group. I think I mentioned Marisa Robinson won it. She was the only Australian solo to win a World Champs, and she's an absolute machine. And then another girl, Karen Mancini, came 8th. So the 3 of us sort of knew, and unfortunately Marisa's been injured, so she hasn't raced this year yet. But Karen's already qualified. Because there was a lot more opportunity this year. Like last year it was just Sydney and Melbourne races. We only had 2, whereas this year we've had 5 already. There's Brisbane, there's Auckland. So I kind of knew, like if I wanted it, I just had to make sure like I went after it and gave it sort of my best shot. So that was always the goal. But I'm 50 in September, and I actually can't wait to turn 50. I don't think anyone really wants to say that, but it means I go up an age group.
Yeah, I think this is where everyone starts to go, oh, actually, here's a benefit.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be 49 and 9 months when I race Worlds, and I'm just like, oh, if it was just that little bit later. So
yeah, totally. But there, go on.
And even like one of the girls that's already in the 50th, she's like, next year when we race, we have to like choose alternative races. So you go after one and I'll go after another. Because like if you come, but I'm sure, there's a lot more opportunity now than there was last year. So
100%. And I think, like from our like experience being in Australia and everything starting to build, it's kind of similar to what was happening in the UK. Probably, I guess you guys are probably a year to 18 months behind where the UK was. So it's going to get more, you have to probably get a bit more strategic about where you're going to qualify once it starts to go, because you notice a lot of Brits now are going over to Europe because the British races are so competitive.
So yeah.
So many people there for the same, obviously, outcome, which is it's great for the sport anyway. And it's a great way to travel, and you've done quite a bit of traveling, haven't you? You've done races all over the place.
Yeah, I went to Singapore, and I actually think I'm the only person in the history of Hyrox that's got slower each race. So I did Melbourne, I did like 1:14, then went to Singapore. I was like, I know what I'm doing now. And then I did 1:21. It was hot. So like Gabe Heck, I think, did 1:06 in the, he won the men's pro in 1:06 versus he's normally a 58 type athlete. Then I went to LA and I was like, that was my first pro race. Now I've got like another 2 months training under my belt. I should be able to do like a 1:15 pro, did 1:21 pro. Then I went to Taipei, and Taipei, oh my God, that was just like the worst race. Matt Locke, who's the race director from Australia, effectively like picked me up off the floor, and looking at photos, my lips were blue. I was shaking in the wall balls. I did 1:25 and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting worse. Like, I need to set up an Instagram account or something, like this is, I'm meant to be getting faster. But then I went to Worlds and I was 7.5 minutes faster than Taipei. And I did a 3.5 minute PB. I'm like, well, if there's ever a time you want everything to kind of come together, it's at World Champ. So yeah, I was pretty.
You saved it. You just saved it all for the
no, I know.
race. It's perfect.
And it was actually really funny because a lot of the Americans, a lot of the English were like, "Oh my God, Worlds was so hot." Like it was like I think the Americans call it a swamp pit or something. And I was like, it was cold compared to Taipei. Like it wasn't cold,
What was Taipei like? Really high humidity then? Because I think, I don't know, we found, Brisbane, blooming hell, the humidity in Brisbane was crazy. We were like, God, you Australians have got a massive advantage if you're training in this heat. And maybe that's just what happened. You trained.
But we remember we were coming from winter, so we didn't have that heat in June, July, because Australia was cold when we came over. Yeah. I just think it was a bit of a combo. I hadn't raced since December, and so it was the end of May. So that's now nearly 6 months. And there was quite a few like good girls from Asia in that race, and I was trying to kind of keep up with them. So I probably went a bit too fast, but it was a great learning curve because I was just caught up in the moment. I forgot to take gels. I forgot to drink water. And then I just went really downhill very quickly. So I was like, right, at Worlds, I'm going to take my gels, even if I have to stop for water, just pace yourself. And we didn't even know, like I finished when the results came up, we checked and I was like 8th. I was like, oh my God, 8th, that's amazing. And then someone came through on the last wave, like the next wave, and she pushed us out, but still top 10, I was quite happy with.
In the world is incredible.
Considering I'm the everyday athlete, not the PT or.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I think it just shows as well, like if you put in like the commitment and you carried on, even though you didn't maybe get the best races, like you went backwards as such a little bit, but you can't compare like race to race to race because like you say, venues are different, like humidity's different, conditions are different, you're feeling different, but you didn't give up and think, oh, well, no, I'm not going to do it anymore because I didn't PB this time. Like you carried on and kept like going at the sport, and it paid off when it needed to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So no, good on you, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good lesson in just keeping going, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people think every time they're going to get to a race, they're going to do a PB, or they're going to, get on the podium, or they're going to qualify. Sometimes, even just like you're saying, you have a bad race, you don't take your gels, you forget to do that, you go out too fast. The next race you learn from what you did, and it's all building blocks. It's kind of a good thing, like a good lesson to just start, isn't it? And just get into it because you learn from each race.
And I even ended up with an injury after because I jumped up, like I did one of these ones with my medal, and it swung up and hit me in the nose. And even one of the Hyrox guys was like, you've got a lot of energy to do that jump. And then I had to go back and show him. I was like, oh, my face is bleeding now, but
the best injury. What about tips for some of our listeners? You've done a lot of races in a lot of different venues. Do you have maybe a couple of tips that you could give to people that you take on either in your training or on race day, to try and help someone that's maybe not done many races?
Well, first of all, if they haven't done any race, I would just say just sign up. Don't be intimidated. There is a lot of stuff on social media with all the beautiful, very fit people and stuff like that. But that's probably the 1% or the 2% of, it's the everyday people, and it's the everyday people that are going to continue to grow the sport. So sort of the first tip would just be, don't be intimidated, just sign up. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Sign up and go, right, I've got 6 months. Tips, I mean, I'm not very good, like I have passed on the night before and stuff like that. But I've learned from my body and my own experience that I need to take my gels. Like some people are like, oh, I don't need them. If you carb loaded or whatever, you don't need them. But I've literally take one about 15 minutes before the race starts, one after about 20 minutes, and one after about 45, 50. And I found that works for me. So I think, just experiment with what works for you. I know people just take on some of the advice, but then also, do what works for you. The other thing, my brother-in-law's given me a little tip, which I always carry and I always end up handing them out at the end, is soy sauce, like the little fish soy sauces that you get with sushi, are good for cramp. So he's a bike rider and he says he carries them because they're good for cramp. So I always carry them with me because they're tiny.
Yeah.
And so even especially just before the lunges, if I can kind of feel your legs are feeling heavy, I'll just pop a little. It's not the nicest thing to have because it's salty. But I've actually used a couple, there's been people dying at the finishing line and I'm like, yeah, take this. This will sort you out.
Dishing out soy sauce.
Yeah, but they're only tiny. So I just have 3 or 4, in my bike shorts. So yeah.
That's such a cool idea. It makes absolute sense as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say pickle juice, but you're not just going to carry a jar of pickle juice around with you. So yeah.
No, and none of them taste great, do they?
Yeah.
I think at least it's like you say, it's already kind of packaged perfectly to just
go like that with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a tiny mini liquid gel, isn't it? So it's perfect. I like that tip. That's very good.
Yeah, I think we're with you on the nutrition as well. I don't know whether it's the background that we've all had, I don't know, but taking a gel before and then 1 to 2 gels during. I just think whether sometimes it's a placebo effect or not, but I don't think it is. I really feel like I
need it.
dip, and you really dip, don't you?
Yeah.
If we don't,
and I think the other thing is once you dip, you're kind of too late. A bit like with marathons, if you're dehydrated, So it's even if sometimes I take half and then just put it back in my pocket. But I have been known to then put those bike shorts through the washing machine and everything's got sticky. So yeah, but yeah, I definitely yeah.
Yeah,
definitely take your gels or get train with gels just to see what works for you.
Yeah, it's a perfect point, isn't it? Some people might not need them, but some people might, and just listening to someone say that they don't use them doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
No, and I think maybe a good point as well is that gels aren't just for the elite athletes, it's for the everyday athletes as well. We're all pushing our bodies to our max, just because we're not the fastest in the sport, it doesn't mean you're not exerting as much energy as people at the top of the sport. So
well, just between my 2 races, Taipei and Nice was only 2 weeks, which probably people wouldn't even recommend doing races 2 weeks apart. I was 7.5 minutes different just by using gel and being a bit more strict with you need to stop for the hydrolyte or whatever they had at Worlds. And just taking things a bit easier at the start and listening to your body and stuff like that. So
strategy definitely comes into it a lot, as just as much as physically training for the race day. And even things like if people look at strategy, or you look at getting penalties, it's another part of the sport is making sure you follow the rules and you avoid these penalties, because that can just add minutes to your race as well, isn't it? So it's a good point that it's not just physically going out and doing the race. There's a lot of other.
Well, I also think mentally it's probably just as tough. So if you've taken your body to the limit through a marathon, or you've hit the wall in a marathon, or you've done other sort of events where you're not feeling the best, but you just have to push on and things like that, then sometimes it's more of a mental game than it is actually physical, because you know your body can do it. They've done it in the past, but it's just like, oh, you're feeling so, you know, like death, and you're like, no, keep going, you can do it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that and the mental side of it, and like I guess maybe the reason that you keep wanting to compete and keep racing, and what drives you to carry on in those burpees that you really are hating. Like, do you give yourself a pep talk, or is there anything you say to yourself to keep you going?
Well, with the burpees, for it, like as I mentioned earlier, it's halfway, so it's just like, I know you hate them. Like, I'm quite heavy for an athlete. Like, I'm nearly like 68 kilos, and I just think sometimes the lighter you are or the shorter you are, the better you are at burpees. So I'm just like, you just need to get through these. You've got sweat going into your eyes and all this sort of stuff. But I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't, like a lot of people will say, oh, they've got their kids inspire them. I think just being grateful for my own fitness and good health, that, you're just like, well, the more I stay in shape, the probably better, I'm just like my health is sort of going to be. And like a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So just be grateful for what you've been given and just sort of, go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely believe in that, and doing it while you can, and being able to participate in the races is enough reason to go and race and leave it all out there on the floor, for sure.
And then, like on the mental side of it, and we're talking like about what inspires you to do it and how you get through the race. But when you have you've had some tough races, how have you kept going? Like in Taipei, when you said your mouth went blue and you were shaking, like how did you finish those wobbles? What went through your head to get to the end of that?
I just had to break it down into, like, I had the shake. I mean, it'd be nice if like Red Bull set up a little station within the wall so you could just go and get. You're like, right, I just need something, water or something. I mean, the other thing in Taipei, I didn't have anyone supporting me. So my mum's traveled quite a lot with me, but she's quite shy and she doesn't yell. One of my other sisters, she's like, go Cat, and you can, and you're like, right, stop yelling at me, So I think, sometimes, that support just gets you through. But the wobbles, I mean, you just break, like, in your head, you're like, oh, just do 20 and then I'll have a break. And you get to 8, you're like, I've got to put it down. So, the wobbles, again, a bit like the burpees, you're on the final leg, but it can take, I think in that instance, it took 7 minutes. So, yeah.
But it's just like, you're not the kind of person that would stop. You're just like, I'm going to get through it.
No, I never like, as I said, it'd be nice to like stop and just get a drink of water and just go, right, I just need a Red Bull something. But there's nothing in that little area. Otherwise, I think I probably would have stopped for a drink. But no, it was just a matter of, do as many as you can, have a break. But the other thing, I mean, full credit to Hyrox, is the wobble judges are very encouraging. I think pretty much every single time they're like high-fiving you. They're like, come on, you've only got so many to go. And that sort of thing. So I think that, Hyrox does everything very well, but that's something in particular that I think there would be many, many people that have got over the line in that, when in that state when they've just got nothing left to give, purely because of the person, the volunteer that's sort of helping them at the end. So
yeah, they really like get behind you, and it's like, I think they actually want you to do it as much, if not more, as you want to do it. You can really feel that like buzz in the area, and yeah, it's a really nice community feel, for sure.
Well, that's what's nice about Hyrox, though, isn't it? You feel like everyone wants everyone to win. Like everyone brings everyone up, rather than some sports that are so competitive that everyone's trampling over each other to be better. It doesn't feel like it's got that atmosphere. It feels like everyone is encouraging everyone to do their best in their
own. And I think, I mean, the elite 15 girls ladies is a very good example of that. You'll always see like Meg and Lauren come back out onto the floor to try and cheer someone on at the end. And like what other sports would people be doing that?
Yeah, it is. I know it's the sportsmanship. Yeah, at the top is filtering down, isn't it? As well, it's really nice to see, for sure. So the other thing I wanted to find out, Kat, is you obviously you've qualified doubles and singles, and you've done obviously a lot of singles races. But how do the two compare? If someone was thinking, what should I do? How should I start? Or whether they want to do a doubles or a singles, like what's your experience and what do you prefer?
I think, I mean, it would probably like I didn't have a friend that trains quite like, I mean, as I said, I'm a bit older. So if I had someone like-minded, or if there was someone at the gym that I went to that was similar, that I probably would do doubles. But I wouldn't be afraid of solo either, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's probably just about finishing, not about qualifying for worlds or, you know, posting a really good time. It's such a good like achievement. And I think, you know, for many, like it's actually, yeah, it's achievable. Whereas, you know, running a marathon, you're like, oh my God, it's going to take me 6 hours if I'm running at a slow pace, or I'll have to walk. Whereas this, you know, you could potentially do it in under 2, and it's, you know, like that's a lot more achievable. I also think because of the wave nature of the race, nobody knows where you're at. Like if you've been out in the course for 3 hours, it doesn't matter. So yeah. I just for under my circumstances, because I just wanted to push myself that little, because I said I hadn't run for probably a year, put on some weight. I was like, nah, sign up for this. You've got no excuses, versus, you know, trying to organize to catch up with someone. And I think I mentioned when I sent you guys an email, the lady that I actually did the doubles with, I didn't know. So
yeah, no, I can't believe that.
So I just happened to be in a WhatsApp group from 2023 Hyrox. Didn't know anyone really in the group, but because I had a bit of experience in Hyrox, I'd every now and again just post a little snippet, you know, or tip or whatever. And then on the morning of Melbourne in June, a girl woke up sick, and she's just like, oh my God, I'm sick. Can anyone fill in like in 3 hours? I don't want to let my partner down. And the girl was, I think she was like 41, 42. And I just looked them up and I was like, oh, they did like 120 last year. I was like, oh, I could probably do that. And then I was like, I'm even in the same age group. And she's like, oh no, you're going to be filling in with a lady that's 56. And I was like, that's awesome. Like I'm 40. I think I was 48 at the time. I was like, that means we'll go up into the 50 to 59 age group. And we had a couple of messages. She's like, right, you start on odds and I'll start on evens, and we go 50-50 on this and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it all went out the window as soon as we started, because I'd also come from worlds where I was pushing like the sled at 154 kilos. So when you're only pushing a sled that's 104, like you can almost pick it up and run with it. So I think she was probably a bit like, oh, but at the end I was like, oh my God, I think we won. Do you want to go to world champs in the game? She's like, what's world champs? But now she's got into it, you know, like to represent Australia at the age, now she's 57 and I'm 49, you know, like what events or in what sport can you just get it, you know, represent your country as a mature age. So yeah, that doubles experience was great.
Yeah.
I didn't have time. I actually didn't have time to think about it. I literally got there at 9:20. I think like our wave was at 9:50. We were able to get our name changed over. And so with the first lap that we did, our names came up, and I was like, oh my God, my name's there. Like they've done it all properly. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Good on you for just jumping in though, then going, yeah, like I'll give it a go. You know, it shows you never know what's going to happen.
Well, her other option, because she was asking whether or not she could run it by herself. And then like the girl that was sick, she was like, I don't want to let her down. Can anyone do it? And she's like, can I run it by myself? I was like, no, you can't, but I'll try and get there as quick if you want. And at the time I was like, I've never done a doubles, but I've done 5 solo. I'm sure I'll be able to help you. And yeah, so.
Oh, so good.
She's all ready for Chicago.
Yeah, amazing. And then what's your plan now? Have you got any more? Are you doing Brisbane?
No, so Auckland's the 1st of Feb. I was going to do, I'd love to do Auckland because it's an out and back course. Like it's only, you know, it's not like laps. Yeah. So it'd be, you know, really good, but it's like, I've got quite a few trips planned this year, including like something for my 50th. So I was like, no, you probably need to save a bit of money and not keep flying all over the world for Hyrox races. So I booked Bangkok. So Bangkok's 3 weeks before Worlds, and like Taipei kind of worked in the fact that I got to run another race quite close to Worlds, and you know, even though it wasn't a good race, I learned from it and performed a lot better. And then I think, like I just mentioned, that so I've got a sister that lives in Melbourne, another sister lives in Perth, and a mum that lives in Perth, and we're all flying up to Bangkok to meet. And I'm working on my family either doing a relay. So there's 4 girls.
Yeah.
My mum being 76, so trying to get
Just
Carol.
don't make your mum do the burpees.
No, well,
That'll be
she
nice.
actually
Be nice
she's
to her.
well, I actually think this is a win-win for her because I keep telling her we should do doubles, and she's like, Catherine, I can't run, and I was like, it's all right. We'll just power walk, and I'll do all the stations. So I think this is the lesser of the two evils to do a relay. And she told me the other day she wants to do the row because she gets to sit down.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Wise.
So yeah, so that potentially on the card. And I was just like, my older sister was born with half an arm, so we've been looking into the adaptive options for her, and she's just got into she's lost quite a lot of weight and just been doing a bit of running. So yeah, we thought potentially go to Bangkok and like sign up. So the registrations for Bangkok only open I think on the 9th of Jan. So got the flights all sorted. We just haven't booked the tickets.
Oh, that would be amazing though. And just bringing everyone together and all different. Yeah, like it's so nice when I think families do it as well. A lot of, we've seen a few mum-daughter duos or father-son doing the doubles. So it would be good to do a family relay for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's another great thing about Hyrox is the intergenerational, like the people that are doing it with, like you said, son and like father and mother and daughter combos. And yeah, there was a combo in Melbourne. The mum was 75 and they did like a 122 in doubles.
Awesome, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things that I'm loving about Hyrox is like there's no age or gender or like there's nothing, like people are just smashing it, whatever the age, whatever the disability, whatever the gender, like everyone is just absolutely smashing stuff. Yeah. And
and I think, all you really need is a pair of trainers and the entry fee, which I know that's a lot easier said than done in England because obviously you guys have ballots and things like that. But when it comes to like things like triathlons or marathons, there's a lot more training. Like Hyrox is quite achievable and accessible because you could you just need a pair of trainers and like some decent fitness and you could get around the course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so good.
Oh no, you've been a wealth of knowledge and have done a lot of races, and we're excited to follow the rest of your journey. But should we go on to the cheeky insights? Is that okay? We've got 8 questions for you that we usually end with. The first one being the lovely question of what shoes do you wear to race Hyrox?
Well, this is where my lack of knowledge of not being a PT, not really knowing anything about fitness is. I've got Puma and they're orange and they're not Divets and not Nitro. They're just something else.
Orange Pumas, that's fine.
Yeah, orange Pumas. There's something foam form, like they're just ones that I got off the internet. But I have had my feet, I've done there's a company in Australia called Running Company and they get you on a treadmill and you run and stuff. And they
you're gating around.
So I kind of almost now just buy off like online to make sure that that's something similar. So yeah, orange Pumas.
That shows you don't need the fanciest shoes in the world to qualify for world champs. There you go.
No,
I actually not sure. Just don't know.
I actually qualified in Melbourne in a pair of. I later found out they were trail shoes. Like I just bought them because I like the color, and then my friends were like, "Oh, they're trail shoes." I was like, "Oh, really?"
We used trail shoes for our first Hyrox as well because we thought they'd be quite good for the sled. At least you get some good grip on them.
Yeah, I just did them because I like the look of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can probably agree with that, can't they?
Okay, next one is, which has been your favorite Hyrox venue that you've raced in?
I'd have to say Worlds, just the whole event in general. Did you guys do Nice? I know you did Manchester.
We were working, we couldn't go.
Yeah. But as I said, like having that whole opening ceremony where you're walking out, like they played I Come From the Land Down Under and you got the Australian flag and they had Can girls and all this sort of stuff. And like, you just brought a tear to your eye because like, oh my God, like I'm 48 and I've never, get the opportunity to kind of represent Australia on this stage that no one really knows what it is in Australia yet, but like we'll kind of get there. And then because Nice was like on a seaside town, I lived in London for 7 years, so I actually had a couple of friends. I had 3 friends fly out from London, 2 friends come down from Paris. My mum was there, and then they had the sign making station, which was the best thing ever. So, you know, I had friends, you know, go run, Cat, run, and every lap they were yelling at me and like moving around, and yeah, it was just an absolute awesome experience. But even in the I went to Hong Kong in November, and then obviously Melbourne. Just like I was like, Hong Kong's awesome. They had some toilets that you could access very easily, and then Melbourne outdid that by having the athlete zone with, you know, a different door and the toilets as well. So every event's almost getting like better. But yeah, I don't think you can take away from Worlds.
Yeah, super special event in Nice. I think a few people have said that went, and I think it's all in all the venue and the experience together, isn't it? It just tops it off. Okay, next one is, which is your favorite Hyrox station and why?
I'm actually, the sleds is probably my favorite, which when I did LA, I think my combined sled time was something like 11 minutes. And when I did Worlds, even though the sleds were quite slow at Worlds, I think my combined time was about 7.5, 8. So I've turned like a weakness, because especially going from open to pro, it was quite like it went up straight away. But now I actually quite enjoy it. So much so I was just like, why aren't they a bit towards the end? Like where, you know, like you can overtake sort of thing. So yeah, I would probably say the sleds.
Do you prefer the push or the pull?
The pull you can actually make up the most time, because the sleds, that's a longer station. So probably the pull.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever said the pull? I was like, are you crazy?
Yeah, no, someone said it. That I think we had one or two people say it that are quite strong, like stronger athletes.
Yeah, well, I used to always joke that I had Chinese from the shoulders, like sort of broad. I'm like, finally they've come into, you know, legs and shoulders sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay, next one. If you could do a doubles Hyrox with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be?
I actually don't know. Like, one, I've got to get my mum out there, so that's probably one of the priorities. But she might relay. I'll give a relay. But I almost think it has to be a comedian or someone who's just going to whinge the whole time and just be funny. But I don't know. I don't think you guys. Do you guys know Kath and Kim?
Oh, I've heard of them. They're female comedy duo.
It's a television show. There's a guy on that's very funny. But I also just thinking someone like Carl Pilkington. Do you know him? Like the Idiot Abroad. Do you remember that show?
Oh, no,
He's Ricky Gervais's best friend.
Okay.
Anyway, but you know, just someone that's kind of just
someone like that, yeah. Someone that you can drag around and they're just gonna be really sarcastic.
But I just think someone just to make it a bit fun. Just come on, mate. Stop whinging, get on with it.
You might get fed up after a while. But...
yeah.
Very good answer. We've not had that before, so we'll take it. Next one is, we've spoken about already, for the fueling for Hyrox, and the gels you take in the race. Is there anything else that you do around that to support it? Like, do you always have a banana before you race or anything like that?
I mean, I do eat a lot of bananas, but not like, I don't have a ritual of eating banana. It would always be a big pasta the night before, but I think sometimes just depends. Fortunately, the majority of my races, the pro races, have always been sort of in the morning or like lunchtime sort of thing. Our pro doubles obviously was just at 5:30, which I know they always had to train like with the time that you're going to start, but that kind of just threw me a bit. But I just think electrolytes, I drink actually quite a lot of, one of my friends got me onto coconut water and like the watermelon coconut water, drinking quite a lot of that. But I've always tend to carry just the electrolyte tablets that you can just drop into water, and sort of sip on that. So
do you take anything like to support, like as being a bit of an older athlete, like your joints or anything? Like,
no, see, I'm just like, I'm a test case if anyone wants to, like, seriously, I don't take anything. I barely go to the doctor. I don't know. I think I've listened. I don't know if it was one of your podcasts or what, like nutritionists. They're like, oh, if you eat enough protein, you don't really need protein supplements and things like that. So yeah, and I think just this is a bit overwhelming So I'm kind
Yeah,
of like,
no,
got through life
absolutely.
to 49. I've had a knee reconstruction, my knee's a bit dodge, but other than that, yeah, just eat good, healthy food,
Yeah,
really.
and I think simple is good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's not always a need to, you can go too far with it as well. Like, it's
I don't even think I would know where to start. Like,
Mm.
I kind of would need someone to say, right, we're going to test this, or we're going to try taking this, because I just think it'd just be overwhelming. So,
Yeah, and a lot of the time people take supplements and they're just wasting their money because their body either can't like absorb the nutrients or they aren't, sorry, go on. You want to...
no, and I was going to say, and being nearly 50, like, would my body then agree with it now? Because I've lived all my life with not having anything, and like bananas and, just like eating quite like oats and quite healthy and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you can get it through, if you're getting it through food, it's the best way to get it, isn't it? The natural form. That and soy sauce.
And beetroot, like those beetroot shots.
Beetroot, yeah. Oh, that's so bad, aren't they? I love.
Yeah, I just can't stomach. And they're like, ugh. So in the lead up to Worlds, I was just eating like a whole thing of beetroot every meal, steak and beetroot, and greens, and then just the day before, like pasta, and it works. So for me, anyway.
There we go. Steak and beetroot for a week before, pasta the night before.
Yeah.
That's
soy sauce.
Curry soy sauce. And...
You'll be fine. Oh, I love it.
Okay, next one is, what's your favorite type of training session for Hyrox?
Oh, I listened to you guys talk to. I just went for a run last night, and I was listening to Chris Woolley. But I don't know. I just kind of do whatever. Like, I've actually, Bryony Keys was my coach last year, and she's just quit or stopped doing one-on-ones, because I don't know if you know, she had an accident when she was out here.
Yeah,
she was staying with me
the other day, actually. So
yeah, she was living with me. So she came in after Worlds. I was like, oh, I quite often dog sit. I was like, I'm dog sitting for a month, and she's like, I'm going to be in Melbourne. I was like, come and stay with me. It'll be free. And yeah, the 2 nights before the race, she went and did a recce to Melbourne Convention Centre, and she got run over. Her foot got run over crossing the road, and yeah. So she was programming, so I would just do whatever kind of she told me. But I don't know if I ever kind of go, woo, yeah, that's a great, like, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
You just tick them off.
Yeah. And I mean, like, yeah, I think now as an older athlete, like, I never really did strength training because I'm just kind of like, I don't want to get bigger, or I don't want to, but now I see the value in it and just how much difference it makes doing that strength.
Do your own training now? Like, you just go and do what you feel?
I'm just because I'm in Perth for 2 weeks. I've only I've just been running, but I think for in the new year, I probably work with one of the Australian guys to get to. I've reached out to him. I just not ready really to start yet because I'm still at my mum's in Perth.
Yeah, and then you go into a bit of structure and do as you're told.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay, next one. We also touched on this a little bit, but in a nutshell, why do you think someone should sign up for their first Hyrox?
I just think that, like, the massive sense of achievements that they will get after they do it. Don't overthink it. Don't go, oh, I'm not quite ready, or I've got a niggle, or I've got that, or I just think just sign up, go overseas, especially if you're in the UK. I've always wanted to go Poland. Go to Poland. I think it's the cheapest. Just do it and think about it later. And I think, like, everyone, like, it's almost like the marathon. Like, you do one, you're like, oh my God, I'm never doing one of those again. That was horrible. And then, like, 5 minutes later, like, where is the next one? Or, looking on Rock's tickets to try and find a last minute ticket for something. So I just say, don't overthink it. The wave structure is amazing. No one's going to know if you take 4 hours, an hour 30, so just put your trainers on and start running. Really, I would start with running. I would start with doing a park run, really, because that kind of can give you a benchmark at a 5K, and they're free, and you'll start to meet people, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, really good advice. Especially the park runs are so good, aren't they? They're like another way to like join up and be with people that are like-minded, and be in that kind of like event like scenario where you're not on your own.
But it's also a good benchmark, because then if you start getting, like a 30-second PB, and the next week it's 45 seconds, and it's a really good.
Yeah, you can use it as a
and again, it's achievable. So if you walk the first one and then you walk the next one, then you can just keep building.
Yeah, and if there's one in your town, you go back to the same one, so it's not like a Hyrox different venue, so they're varied. Like if you go back to the same one, like your time for that course, and you can try and get better as you go.
Or start on a really hilly
do
part run,
really
and then go do a
first.
really flat one, and you'll get a PB, and then you might be addicted.
Okay, last question. Is there anyone that you would love to see on our podcast that we could interview, or a type of person in the Hyrox space?
I mean, I love John Wynn. I love what he's done from where, coming from addiction. He's a young, he's got his daughter, Luna, I think she's only 6 months old. I know he's done quite a few interviews and things like that, but someone like that is just so inspiring to people, especially from a mental health point of view, and people that have struggled. I've always used it like I'm almost a different person if I don't exercise. Like, you need to get out there and move about. And I also I love your podcast and the fact that you are mixing the everyday Joes like myself and badass Gran, and the mother and daughter, and with the elite. So it's great to keep just that sort of mix to to make it achievable for people.
Yeah, it's nice to relate, isn't it? Because if you always talk to elite athletes that train every day, have time to recover, it's their job, they're getting, all these opportunities, or they're like going for the majors, where most people aren't. Like you said, the majority of the Hyrox community is your everyday athlete, or people that are just finding Hyrox, that want someone to...
and I don't even really have a particular time of the day I train, because I work 9 to 5, but sometimes I get up in the morning and do it, and the majority of the times I try and do it in the morning, but then you have bad night's sleep, and I'm like, well, I've got nothing on tonight, I'm just gonna go back to sleep and do it tonight. But I'll get it done. It's not an excuse not to do it, but I'm not that strict on my routine, because I'm not working around kids and things like that. So
I think it's interesting to talk to different people, because they have different approaches and different tips and different ways of doing stuff. But you see by speaking to so many people that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Everyone doesn't have to do the same thing to get the same result, and to achieve completing the race, which is amazing and an incredible achievement in itself. To have done 10 races is unbelievable. One race is hard enough. I think it's inspiring just to talk to anyone that's completing a Hyrox. So, and
I mean, I've made some really good friends as well, which has been another plus side. And even just international, I don't know if you know Biddy Sefton. She was in the New Zealand race, but she lives in Hong Kong, and then she just messaged me and she's like, oh, we're going for a beer, do you want to join me? And then we'll join our friends. And I was traveling alone, so I was like, oh, that was great, and then you're running into people in Hong Kong and Taipei, and a couple of the girls came out to Perth from Singapore, and then obviously there's all the friends I've made in Australia, that and there's lots of the other thing, there's lots of mums that are, they might have put their fitness to the wayside when they've brought up their kids, but now they've kind of the kids might be a bit older, or this is a bit more achievable than a 24-hour trail run. So it's been a great sort of 18 months.
I mean, crazy. Well, I think it's impressive what you've achieved and what you're definitely going to go on to achieve. And I know you say you're the everyday athlete, but you are definitely an inspiration to us, and to probably a lot of people listening as well.
Well, thank you.
Really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate you coming to chat and that start tunnel. So
I mean, as I said, I felt horrible during the race, and I was like, I should have talked to him. I should have. I was like, no, you needed to say that. I heard your accents. I was like,
it was making everyone's race, and I think people get so nervous in that start tunnel that sometimes it's nice when someone brings a bit of a buzz and a bit of energy. It's a bit of a distraction, isn't it? So everyone doesn't get so, I appreciated it anyway. But Kat, where can everyone follow you? I know you've got Instagram, haven't you?
I've got Instagram, and I've got about 350 followers. If you really like to follow me, I think it's just Kat Bids, KATBIDF. You probably won't see that much fitness content. You'll probably see me traveling around the world, more to the events than actually pictures from the events, because I'm just one of those people that goes bright red.
Yeah, but if somebody wants to reach out and grab a drink with you after, or
or if they want any questions, as I said, I'll I'm trying to get my sister the 9th of January is when the opening sign-ups for Bangkok, and I'm like, come on, just need to do it. Sign up. You've got 5.5 months to train. She's done a couple of park runs. So if there's anyone out there that just needs a little bit of advice from a non-PT or a sort of half hybrid athlete, then just reach out.
No, that's awesome. And then obviously anyone that's going to do Bangkok, going to Thailand as well, you'll be there. So that's cool.
And Chicago.
For sure. Happy days. Well, thank you very much for your time.
That's all right. Thank you. It was so lovely to me. I almost feel like I need to interview you guys now about your time in Australia, and it looks like you're having a ball anyway and enjoying our coffee and food. And
yeah, you guys do fitness, coffee, and food really well, and weather. But you just can't get a bad coffee here. Whereas at home, you can't get a good coffee in some places. So.
I know we've been spoiled.
We have, haven't we? But to everyone listening, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully, if this has inspired you, and if you want to reach out to Kat to get involved in Hyrox going forward, then reach out, and please, like this episode, share it, and subscribe to the podcast, and hopefully we can bring you some more awesome episodes.